Thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Chris Robinson, and I am the moderator for this section of the forum for Ward 3, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the St. Petersburg Area. The League of Women Voters was founded 106 years ago, just before women gained the right to vote in 1920. We are a nonpartisan public policy organization that has never endorsed a political party or candidate. We encourage informed and active participation in government and work to increase understanding of public policy issues through education and advocacy. Tonight's forum features the candidates for Gulfport City Council Ward 3. As a courtesy to others, please do silence all electronic devices. This forum is being recorded by the League of Women Voters and will be posted on the League's website. The recording may not be edited for campaign purposes. No other recording of this forum is permitted. If you have not yet submitted a question card, please raise your hand and a League volunteer will collect it. We will address as many questions as time permits. The 2026 municipal election will be held on March 10th. Please note that this is a forum, not a debate. The purpose of this forum is to provide candidates with an opportunity to present their views on issues of concern to the Gulfport community. Interruptions and personal attacks are not permitted. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then pose the same questions to each candidate. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. A timekeeper will provide a 30-second warning and a 1-minute warning, and a signal when time has expired. Each candidate will then have 2 minutes for a closing statement. The views expressed by the candidates this evening are their own and do not represent those of the League of Women Voters. The candidates will now make their opening statements, and we will start with Jennifer Webb.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Webb, and I am running to represent you on City Council Ward 3. I've lived in Gulfport since my 20s when I was recruited here by the University of South Florida. They had the #1 public anthropology program in the nation. I graduated with honors from that program and was delighted when they recruited me to shore up their Office of Community Engagement and Partnerships, where I leveraged the university's resources in order to make real change in our community. I'm talking reducing the infant mortality death rate and figuring out why our sand was migrating off of our beaches and into our passes. These are the projects that I worked on then, and this is why people asked me to run to be your state representative in Tallahassee. When I was there, I built a consensus agenda, pulled people together, and because I was so effective, my colleagues, both Republican and Democrats, voted me one of the most effective freshman legislators. I brought that consensus agenda with me into the private sector when I started my own firm. And today I'm hired by people to solve complicated, complex problems. Florida Blue trusts me to reduce the number of overdoses in our community by 50% in 5 years. The Carter Center called on me to make sure that our elections don't devolve into partisan-based violence. And the League of Cities called on me to make sure that our cities are building resiliently for the future. And those are and that is the kind of leadership that I want to bring to Gulfport. Gulfport's at a crossroads, we can all feel it. Now is the time when we need real leadership, proven leadership, that understands how to pull projects together, chunk the projects, and make sure that we're not passing the burden of the cost solely on the shoulders of our homeowners. And that's why I'm running today, to see us into the future and to make sure that we're creating a Gulfport where all can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
Good evening. My name is Keri Nelson, and I want to be a Ward 3 representative on City Council. I am proud to be a Gulfport resident for over 2 decades, but make no mistake, Gulfport is not just where I live, it's where my family is thriving. I've had a lifelong career working in public service, mainly at county and local levels. This has given me first-hand knowledge of how decisions directly impact our local community. After graduating from Eckerd College with honors, I worked as a marine biologist, which was my dream job. But through the years, my professional path led to natural resource protection, policy development, and even some coastal permitting. In local government, I've managed public records, served as a human resources administrator, and I'm currently in IT, leading the implementation of an HR information systems to modernize city operations and promote transparency. I've served on the Board of Adjustment here since 2024, I was the vice chair and now the chair as selected by my peers. Through this voluntary position, I've gained valuable insight into our city processes and procedures. Other tidbits about me. I am a strong proponent of continuous learning, and in the last few years, I've become a certified public manager and hold a SHRM HR certification. I'm an avid runner and enjoy relaxing on the beach in my spare time. But one of the coolest experiences I've had is in high school. I was in high school Akanaut and actually got to do some research at the bottom of the ocean in a 2-man submersible. So why do I want to serve on council? Honestly, I love the city and believe in Gulfport as a community for a lifetime. Time for the youngsters and senior center for the seasoned souls, and tons of activities for all of us. My goals are simple. Meet your expectations for the city, keep a balanced budget, and ensure infrastructure is properly maintained to prepare for the future. I believe using a broad perspective to evaluate issues is key to address community needs. My diverse career, personal experiences, and long-term residency certainly provides that. I'll use my relevant and practical experience for responsible decision-making to be your voice. I am focused on local issues, accessible, rooted in Gulfport, and ready to serve. Keri Nelson for council on March 10th.
Thank you both. We will now begin with the questions, and we will begin with Ms. Nelson. The first question is, do you agree that Gulfport is weird? And what will you do to keep Gulfport weird?
All right, so that is the slogan here, right? Keep Gulfport weird. I love that our community is so diverse, right? And we have so many people from different backgrounds and unique perspectives that come here. Yes, I want to keep that vibe here, that culture here. That is why I moved here. That is why we lived here. That's why we chose to start and raise a family here. Gulfport, I believe, has a huge heart, and we need to kind of, I think, circle back together. I know that the hurricanes have placed a really big burden on a lot of us, and we're still trying to recover through that. So I think as part of keeping Gulfport weird, we need to really listen to everybody, continue to help our neighbors, and build back our strong community.
Excellent. All right, yes, I will keep Gulfport weird. I was told to answer the question. And so what can council do to help keep Gulfport weird? We can make sure that when we do build back, that we are incentivizing keeping the structures that are there if it's possible, if they're not damaged up to 50%, as was mentioned in the last debate. We can make sure that we're actually still have an artist zone. You know, the arts district is downtown. I don't know many artists who can afford to live downtown anymore. So where can they go? They're going to Ward 4. They're going to Tangerine. That's an area that is ripe for having some new mixed-use development where you live, where you create kind of thing. And that's in the spirit of Gulfport. We need to make sure that we are a town where we have Gulfport for a lifetime. So whether you need a granny flat in the backyard of someone because you wanna move out of your larger home and you need something that's more manageable, or you're a new family starting out and we need to develop multifamily housing so that you can do that, so that you can attain, you know, the American dream of staying and living and growing your family here. And finally, we protect what's wonderful and quirky about us. I don't think that leaves, but we need to make sure that we foster it by making sure that our people have a chance to stay here in our city.
Thank you. And Ms. Webb, we'll start with you for the next question. The brick wall at Trolley Square has been crashed into many times, and it happened again today. What can be done?
That's so funny. Okay, so what can be done? I mean, I think that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So how can we do something that memorializes that spot, that captures the importance of that area, without building back another brick wall that's gonna get crashed in again? I also think that we can create places. I talked to David Gwynn, he's head of the Florida Department of Transportation, because I don't know about you, but I've heard time and again that we can't slow down traffic on 49th or on 22nd, and he said that's not true, Jennifer. You can slow it down. And that's part of making place. And that's part of making sure that people aren't going so fast that they crash into Charlie's Wall. And that's part of also supporting our businesses so that they can thrive, so that people are going slow enough to even recognize that they're there. We have some amazing businesses that are popping up in our, on 49th, on 22nd, on Tangerine. And it's time that we develop the infrastructure to support that, slow down traffic, and celebrate what we have in our city.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
So, while we cannot be in the vehicles and tell people to slow down, right, or to make sure that they understand the areas that they're driving in, I really am a huge supporter of the whole improvements on 49th Street to help, and a huge supporter of complete streets and where we can make the streets a little bit more safe for pedestrians and cyclists and our e-bikes, and to actually slow down traffic, right? Because we have a big mixed-use area there. We've got residents, we've got businesses, we've got people, that's a major corridor. So I believe what we can do on council is to support those efforts to make that street a lot more safer for everybody that use it, make sure people are aware, increase education and driver safety, especially as a mom with a teenage driver. I'm always very concerned about driver safety and the drivers around her. So that's what we can do, is just support a good improvement, streets, walkability, and complete streets program there.
Thank you. And we'll start with Ms. Webb for the next question. Ms. Nelson for the next question starting. How will you work with the school district to ensure schools are supported by the council?
So, my children have attended the public schools throughout their career. I'm a strong advocate, proponent for volunteering. I would definitely support and promote people being mentors in the city on council. By just supporting one student, you will change a life, right? If you give that, somebody prop that person up, support them, be there to listen, who knows what that person can do. So I think slowly, one by one, individual by individual, we can help on that. We can also talk with administration, see if there's any kind of drives we can help with. I know a lot of children don't have the support, unfortunately, at home. Again, that's why I would go back to mentorship. And I know schools also have closets where they have supplies for students that need that. Continue to support that and just make the community aware that just listening to a student, mentoring a student can make a huge, huge difference. To share their experiences, to give your experience, to support them, just to see them smile, it is amazing. And for a student to know that somebody cares makes a big, big difference. You know, you never know how you can impact someone's life if you just take time to listen to them.
Thank you. Ms. Webb?
Sure. And I'd like to point out that we are joined today by our own school board member, Caprice Edmond, who's in the back there. Thank you so much for showing up here for us. And I would love to see Gulfport showing up for our schools. And when I first met with Jim O'Reilly, our city manager, 12 years ago, I asked him what the most important thing in our aspect of our city was, what I should keep my eye on when I go to Tallahassee. And he said, our school system. For those of you who have lived here a very long time, you've seen our schools go from thriving schools with bustling with students to empty shells, some of which being shut down, like the school down the street from my house, the Catholic school. We know that there's conversations throughout the county right now about merging schools, and while we were not on that first list, what can we do to make sure that we don't end up on a list where our schools are getting merged? And I think that there's some things that our city council can do to extend a warm hand to our elementary and our high school. One is we have some amazing leadership programs in our city. I mean, really great, like nautical programs and youth leadership programs. What are we doing to advertise those to the kids at the elementary school and at Bogey? What are we doing to make sure that we're communicating with our broader community the events that are happening at the school? I don't recognize, I don't remember actually having seen communications about what's going on in our school system, and that needs to change because they're part of it, they're an integral part of our system. And that's something that I will commit to do.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Ms. Webb. You each bring different kinds of experience to the table. How does yours help support Gulfport, and what is something you respect or could learn from the other candidate?
Oh, excellent. I'll start with, that's a great question, thank you for that. So I bring my decades of relationships with not only our city leaders and administration, but those throughout the Suncoast League of Cities, through my work with the Suncoast League of Cities. I know almost every council member and every city manager in Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County, and have worked closely with them. So I know what is possible and what other cities are doing to solve some of the same issues that we're facing in our community. I know how to structure funding programs, and I know the county commission and the folks who are responsible for restructuring those programs in the county so that we're getting good deals on our stormwater infrastructure. And just yesterday, I was talking to the chair of appropriations in Tallahassee, talking about an appropriation that will likely be coming before him this year for Gulfport, advocating for the state to lend a hand to projects in Gulfport specifically. And these are relationships that I have at day one. I don't need to develop them. They are long-term friendships that I want to put in service to our beautiful city. And finally, I know how to bring people together around a consensus agenda to move the ball forward. If the Tampa Bay Partnership and Florida Blue trust me with issues that are most important to them to get the job done, I really would love if I could do the same for our city and make sure that that I'm using those skill sets. What I don't come with is detailed knowledge of city administration. And my colleague has that. I do not have that. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to learning from our city administrator and our city staff, and something that I hope to grow as a professional while I'm on council.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
Could you just repeat it again, please?
Sure thing. You each bring different kinds of experience to the table. How does yours help support Gulfport, and what is something you respect or could learn from the other candidate?
Thank you. So as part of my, diverse career path, which I love, I've done a lot of education and outreach, especially at kind of the younger age groups. Back when I managed the sea turtle protection program for another county, I was always doing outreach and teaching about sea turtles and lighting and the importance of environmental stewardship. So Gulfport is changing, right? We are seeing a lot more families in here. I know when we first moved here, there were no kids on our streets. My kids were there. I think there's maybe one or two houses maybe that had them. But now I look outside, and there's people walking and new kids and families there. So I can relate to them and be able to talk to them and make sure that they are included in our community. Again, with my diverse background, I've also done a lot of work with policy. Policy is something that really shapes the community, right? It's kind of our job on council to look at policies, shape policies, and make sure that they correctly address our city's needs. The one thing I think that my fellow candidate has that I don't have, of course, is those relationships in the state, right? So I definitely would want to talk to her about navigating those state relationships, as I am very knowledgeable about how city works.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with Ms. Nelson. Will you continue a more detailed maintenance of the storm drains?
I think maintenance of storm drains absolutely is one of our top priority. I know that we've got the Adopt a Drain program that's starting up and run. That's very important. I think all of us have a responsibility if there's a storm drain in front of your house and you see it's blocked, please go out and unblock it. That will resolve a lot of issues. We have fantastic city staff, but they can't be everywhere and they can't see everything. Making sure that our storm drains are current, the correct size, the flow is going right is of paramount importance to make sure that when we have these big rain events, right, that the rain that's traveling from the northeast of our city down to the southwest, that it flows out properly. So absolutely, we will continue maintenance. We will look at any kind of new technologies there are out there, because I'm a big proponent of technology as well. See if there's any better ideas that other communities are doing. But we definitely need the support of the community along supporting our public works, because again, they can't be everywhere all the time. We also need to make sure that our budget is set so that we have funding, because this costs money, right? We are at threat, might be losing some money, depending on what happens in November. So we have to make sure as council members that we have a budget that we stick to, that is smart, and that will address issues like continued maintenance for all of our public infrastructure.
Thank you. Ms. Webb?
Yeah, this is one of my top priorities. We can't have a city, people won't invest in a city if their homes flood every time the storms are unprecedented, but let's be real. Those of us who've lived here for a long time know that we get floodwaters a lot, especially down in the Marina District and down Beach Boulevard. And so we need to make sure that we are continuing with the more detailed city maintenance of the storm drains and chunking these projects from short-term to long-term and stacking them so that we can leverage state funding and federal funding so that the burden of improving our stormwater drainage system isn't being shouldered completely by our residents. We can't afford it. We don't want to bond all of this because that means higher property taxes for you, and that's not okay. And so what can we do? We can stack the projects, we can enter into intergovernmental agreements with the county and the other cities surrounding us, and we can go to the state and leverage that to go to the state to get funding, which we then can leverage to get federal funds. And then we're reducing the burden for ourselves. But we need to start today. The best time to start, I told somebody earlier, was yesterday. The second best time to start is today. And clearing out our drainage system is priority number one. For those of you who know me well, I'm from Louisiana. And if New Orleans can figure out how to clear out their drains from all those Mardi Gras beads, like we can do it here in Gulfport.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Ms. Webb. Related, what lessons should the city take from its response to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and what changes would you support to strengthen future storm preparedness and resilience?
First, I just want to acknowledge that this question comes from a place of great pain. A lot of people are still not in their houses, and they're now coming face to face with the fact that they're not going to be able to rebuild. And I'm really sorry. It was heartbreaking. Those storms were heartbreaking. And so what lessons that we need to learn is we need communication. We need clear communication early and often and on multiple channels. You need to know what's going on. You need to know how to address what you need to address and in what order. The cities that fared best throughout Pinellas counties were the ones who actually just got going. They didn't wait for the county. They didn't wait for FEMA. They were like, we're gonna put together a plan that we can defend, and then we're gonna move forward because our residents need to be back in their house now. Because anyone knows that standing water and gross and mucky stuff in your house needs to be taken out. The longer it stays, the more toxic it gets. And so communication, action early. The legislature now requires that we have plans, and I'm looking forward to all of these parts I'm looking forward to making sure that our city is fully engaged with SB 180 and the cleanup bill that's going through the legislature right now, so that what happened last time doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
So, my heart goes out to everybody that's still not in their house, that still is not back. I was fortunate enough that So lessons learned from that is that Mother Nature will always win, right? But we can do better. We can be more prepared. We can make sure we have some go kits. We can make sure we have places that we can go. When we rebuild, we need to build smart, and Gulfport's gonna look different, but that doesn't mean that our character has to change, right? We might look differently, but we don't have to act differently. We can still live our lives as one community. Communication is key, and that communication should be through the city, right? That's where we get your best information. A lot of times, I know on social media, rumors get started, they float around, so that's an issue. So we need to make sure that as a city, we are on top of it, and make sure that our messages are clear and easily accessible. I know a lot of folks still need support, and again, I think it's important that they feel comfortable to reach out to the neighbors or to city council and to let us know what they need, because we are all here for everyone.
Thank you. And for the next question, we'll start with Ms. Nelson. If state legislation reduces property tax revenues, how would you approach budget decisions, and which guiding principles would you use when considering service reductions or alternatives?
So if there are proposed reductions, I mean, the estimates are we lose millions in our budget, right? So what we need to do is we need to take a look at the level of service that you as a community expect and want. You're gonna need your input to find out what level of service you expect. We are fortunate that we provide police, fire, sanitation. We are a full service city, rec center, senior center, and that's something that we work hard to keep. But here's the reality, right? If some of those services we know that we don't want to let go, but there's a chance we might have to let go, we might have to figure out a way to increase fees, and no one wants to hear that, right? But that might be a possibility if it's something that we as a community want to keep those services. We also, as a city, can look for other opportunities for revenue within the city, you know, and I would rely heavily on guidance here from the community, and of course, city management to hear some ideas of what could be done, maybe in the waterfront area, maybe downtown, maybe in other areas, but looking for other sources of revenue, rentals, and of course, when the casino's back up and running, you know, we'll have opportunities to rent that again, or maybe even other programs at the rec center at night to generate some revenue.
Thank you. Ms. Webb?
Can you repeat that question
Sure.
for me, please?
If state legislation reduces property tax revenues, how would you approach budget decisions, and what guiding principles would you use when considering service reductions or alternatives?
Okay, that's a great question. First, this is far from fait complete. So every week I'm up in Tallahassee fighting to make sure that they don't just totally annihilate our revenue stream for our cities. Because really, it's an existential crisis. And so for those in the audience, like, get involved, let your voices be heard. Also, there's like 9 proposals on the table, so we don't know which one is gonna get across the final line. But to answer the question about how I would make the decision, first I would look for additional revenue streams. Gulfport actually does pretty good. We only get 31% of our revenue from property taxes. Other cities are as high as 69%. So we're doing pretty good there, but where can we increase taxes? Well, we can build out our business corridors to attract more businesses so that we have local business taxes coming in. Right now, that's only really enough to regulate onboarding new businesses, but we also can collect we can collect 3 other sources of revenue that we need to make sure that we're actually doing that. And then when it comes to cutting services, what I will not do is I will not cut fire and police, because that will impact your property taxes. Your property insurance, sorry. And so what happens is cities negotiate and find the highest ISO rated fire station and police department, and your response time goes into a reduction in your property insurance. And so if we are negotiating down on that, then you're gonna end up paying more on your property insurance. So that doesn't make any sense at all. So I absolutely will make sure that we maintain that and that we maintain the safety of our community first. And then the rest we'll look at as we go.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Ms. Webb. How do you feel about partisan issues taking up time in our council meetings?
That's a good question. That was a long meeting on Tuesday, wasn't it? I'm kind of conflicted about this issue because I like our Constitution. I think that, you have a right to talk, and if that's the rules that everybody gets their 2 minutes, or, 3 minutes, I'd reduce it to 2 minutes. Everybody should get their 2 minutes. That's the structure that our city council meetings are run by. And I think that the clerk and the council does a good job of honoring that. What I would like to see is us focus on issues that strengthen our community and having these conversations happen in venues where you can actually start doing some problem solving. I'm a big problem solver. For better or worse, ask my wife. But I really, when people start talking about something, I think, okay, how can we solve this? How can we come together and really figure out how to make this work? Is this something that we should be working on council? And so those conversations, I think, are far more valuable in a council setting. But like I said, I understand that the rules are the rules and people have their right to their 3 minutes, and so that's important too.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
So this is a nonpartisan race, right? We're a nonpartisan council. I agree that public comment, anyone from the public can come up and state their piece. But council, and as a council member, I will focus on local issues, nonpartisan issues that we have control over, issues that we can affect change on, issues that directly impact you and you and you and everybody in this audience. The national politics, I believe, needs to stay out of local government, and we just need to keep the focus on us, because the national politics, as we're seeing, they are dividing us, right? And what happens when we're divided? We become weak. We all know that we are stronger together. When we become weak, it opens the door for the state to come in and make these preemptive moves to try to limit our powers to create effective government for our local constituents, our local residents. So while I agree that everybody has a right to speak their piece, as council member, we will focus on the local issues.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with Ms. Nelson. Residents have raised concerns about people living in their cars in Gulfport. How should the city address this issue in a way that balances public safety, compassion, and available resources?
So I know this is a hot topic, and I run every morning, and I see the folks in their cars that are parked on the streets now. I believe the city has done a great job with providing outreach to folks. I know we've had police or fire, and then I believe we've got community advocates out there trying to help people, assist them with finding other places to live, to shelter. I think we are doing an incredible job for such a small city to work on this problem that some people, we're not going to solve homelessness, unfortunately, but we do have to be compassionate, but we also have to understand that there are residents here that are directly impacted if someone is, sleeping outside their house in their car. I think we are doing the best we can to accommodate both. I'd like to keep the communication open to find out, speak directly to residents that are impacted by this, that don't necessarily agree with having someone, in their car on the public street, where I believe they can be. So it's a huge issue, and I think we're doing our best, but there's definitely room for improvement, and we just have to keep the dialogue open.
Thank you. Ms. Webb?
Chris, we're balancing public safety, compassion, and what else?
I'll just repeat it. Residents have raised concerns about people living in their cars in Gulfport. How should the city address this issue in a way that balances public safety, compassion, and available resources?
Okay. This comes up every 10, 15 years. It's not a new topic. A lot of this happens in Gulfport. And our city has long done a pretty good job of balancing public safety, compassion with available resources. Most recently, they hired, with Treasure Island, they split an outreach officer to help connect people to resources and supportive services and basic services. I think that also what we can do is make sure that folks aren't parked in front of people's houses, that they're in areas that are publicly available where the public can park, because that's where the conflict is. If you talk to people, it's the mom who's walking her kids and the guy is bathing himself outside of his van. Like that's a real issue, that's a real problem, and there's a real solution there. And so I think the more we distill this down into a human problem, the better the outcome will be. And like I said, we have a history of solving this problem, whether it's the van life folks or the folks on their near derelict vessels in the bay. I mean, this is something that we've long held compassion for folks who are, who are living on their boats or living in their cars. And I think that we'll be able to see our way through this as well.
Thank you. For our last question, we'll start with Ms. Webb before we go to closing statements. If elected, how will you keep residents informed about upcoming issues and your positions before city council votes?
Upcoming issues and what?
About upcoming issues and your position on the issues, I suppose, before city council votes.
Oh, that's great. I am not a great communicator, but I have great communicators who work for me. And so I would leverage their ability, because it's amazing to me. We have some really good communicators who are on our council, and yet the folks, when I'm knocking door to door, they're like, I have no idea what's going on in city council. I mean, why don't we ever find out? Why don't we ever hear? And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to pull together an email list to make sure that the folks, at least in my ward, hear from me and know what issues are coming up and what my position on the issues are and how to get in touch with me if they feel passionately about a specific issue. And so that's exactly what I will do. I'll leverage the resources that I have to make sure that my ward knows what's going on in the city, doesn't feel left out because they're all the way on what we used to call no-go, north of Gulfport Boulevard. and that they're part of the decision making. And by honoring that everybody likes their information differently, I think that we can reach an avenue where folks are more engaged and feel more part of the process.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
Repeat it one more time.
If elected, how will you keep ward residents informed about upcoming issues and your position before city council votes?
Thank you. So I am I really, really love talking one-on-one. I will definitely set aside time to meet with people because I think you can get the most honesty and build the most trust in that forum. With that said, not everybody can meet one-on-one, right? So I will update on official channels like the city website. I will not post on Facebook on different sites, but I will use official channels to kind of communicate. The other thing, which I'm really excited about, I've already been thinking about this, since I love the outdoors and being active, I will set walk and talks. And you can meet different wards around the city, a group of people. I know there's lots of people that like to get out there and walk too. And I think that's kind of like a great way to get out, get some fresh air, and to open up and to share thoughts. And, I will happily answer questions for people, but more importantly, I want to hear what people have to say. And of course, getting some fresh air and exercise is always a bonus.
Thank you both. Now you will each have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we will start with Ms. Nelson.
First of all, I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and for League of Women Voters for hosting, and of course the beautiful theater and all the staff that's here that has to work tonight. Having made Gulfport my home for over 20 years, I am invested in this community. My children have thrived here, benefiting from local programs, right? We got Tot Time, all the library stuff. And as a family, we built lasting connections with neighbors and friends. And just this week, I picked up an application to join the senior center, because apparently I don't have to wait 4 more years. I am the age. That's all right, I'm excited though. All right, my hands-on public service background combined with my long-term residency and experience raising a family in Gulfport has uniquely positioned me to represent your interests with sincerity and integrity. My scientific background has instilled in me a respect for our natural resources and a commitment to stewardship. Policy development, leading human resources, and utilizing technology has given me a broad perspective on how city services can operate efficiently. I take great pride in our city, and I'm committed to a vision of Gulfport as a place for all generations. I'm dedicated to being an accessible and effective voice for every resident. Those who speak up, those who remain quiet, and both current and future members of our community. I am deeply rooted in Gulfport and eager to put my passion and expertise to work for our city. As we look ahead to the future, I ask for your trust and your vote on March 10th. Together we can continue to build Gulfport that is a vibrant, welcoming, and resilient for generations to come. Gulfport for a lifetime. I look forward to the opportunity to serve and to making a positive difference for all who call Gulfport home. Vote Keri for council on March 10th.
Thank you. Ms. Webb?
Sure. Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters, the city staff who are here, and all of you for braving the cold and coming out tonight. It's a great crowd, and it was a wonderful conversation. I love Gulfport. It's more than just a city I love. It's a place that I decided to set my roots and to grow and to learn and to connect with others. And I will make sure that I bring that to council.